Welcome back to Why We Like This, the podcast that treats Florida like the active crime scene it is. I know it by heart, guys. See, I don't even have to read it off of a teleprompter.
And for those watching on YouTube, because we are going to upload this into YouTube from now on, it actually looks like a crime scene today.
It does look
looks like we are
very
hostages to David.
Crime scene in the making.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I of course am your host, David Quinones, in a very weird and not normal setup for us, but one that we hope to do a little bit more often.
Lovely home. It's a lovely home.
Yeah. And I wasn't talking about my house. God damn it.
It's a nice house.
I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, the first of which is Tomas Kennedy. What's up, Tomas? Same shit.
Let's keep it moving.
Keep it moving. Now I feel bad, like going to Gerald and asking him how he's doing. What if he has like some stuff he wants to share?
No, that's fine. I'm okay.
Our guest today is appropriate. He's our hostage today is appropriately enough a Miami guy. He's not a Miami new guy. He's a Miami original guy. But we're going to talk to him about. We're going to present him with our concept of Miami new guy and see what he thinks about it. He is the creator of Miami Creation Myth. He is the creator of that same novel and website. He is the guy that you might recognize hauling hundreds of tons of trash out of the ocean on any given weekend. He's Andrew Otazo. What's up, Andrew?
Most importantly, repeat guest.
Repeat guest.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. A returning guest.
Legacy guest.
Always like to call it out when we got a real friend of the pod on the show. What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. That's fine.
So our intro into this, we wanted to talk to you about the Miami new guy, which is this guy that a lot of us have been talking about. He's the hottest new thing.
You know how, like, in focus groups and political polling, there are voter profiles. You know, like the wine mom or what? This is a Walt, and I'll give credit a David Walt original in terms of a voter profile that I think is key to understand if one is to take political power in Miami-Dade County.
Okay. I think whenever you're explaining the Miami new guy to somebody who is uninitiated, but you're going to know who this guy is.
Yes. Okay. Everyone does.
Everybody knows him.
We lived here.
The first thing to say about the Miami new guy is that he's like, I'm not being ironic. He's great. He's a great guy. He is literally a cool guy. He is he is down to help you out. He will. I was telling you guys on chat this week that a Miami new guy literally helped me with something enormous that I couldn't do for myself this week. Last week, I should say. And he's the kind of guy that will be there in his huge lifted truck to help you move.
Do we resent this guy?
A little bit.
We have some problems with this guy.
Okay.
We're calling him in. We're calling this guy in. We're not calling him out.
Yeah, we're not a cancel culture podcast.
Okay.
No. The Miami new guy is a guy who, and I always start by saying, first of all, that we love him. Second of all, that 10 years ago, he had no politics. He was not a guy that you talked to that gave a shit when you talked about politics. Or maybe he was generically like Obama voter, but like just more like, it's something to do and everybody else is doing it. I don't care. He has perfectly coiffed beard. Yes.
Okay.
Very often shaved head. Very often
Does
a
he wear
shaved
a
head.
cap?
He has a cap.
Okay.
Miami Heat, but like the Levitard style, big letters Heat, like that. He is.
It's not really.
It's
You're building a bit of a word picture, right? Okay, so like Miami new guy, as I said, he has he's always had the lifted F-150, but now he has a 20-foot Trump flag on the back of it.
Okay.
And he drives it in front of Tropical Park on the weekends.
Don't tread on me sticker.
Exactly.
Okay.
What's the name of the president in Diaz-Canal, Singal?
Yeah.
That sticker in the back. You know?
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
Diaz-Canal, Singal.
Okay. How did he get that? Where did he go?
I know. Like, where do you even sell? You have to special order that. You have to.
Yeah,
you have to be comfortable designing PNGs in Photoshop to like.
I mean, you have to like speak Spanish to get that. I assume. Whatever.
No, most of these guys are Hispanic.
This is a Spanish.
These guys are mostly
like this
Cuban
is mostly Cuban, mostly Venezuelan, Nicaraguan guys.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and these guys are like, like ethnically Latino. Like, whereas I walk into a room and people probably think I'm just a white guy. Or same with both of you guys. Like, these guys are clearly not white guys for the most part, right?
Yeah. White passing, but not
white passing, but like not white.
Sure.
And like in the last 6 years or 8 years, they have become the most hardcore ride or die, not necessarily conservative, but Trump, but like pro-Trump. They have fully bought in to the Trump cultural project. And the reason that we talk about this guy a lot on this episode, on these episodes on our show, is because I find him to be unique among subcultures of the people in this country over the last 8 years that have, decided that they are MAGA or decided that they are acolytes of Donald Trump in a way. And they're smart, but like they're kind of clever. They've more like got flex. They don't have like a 4-year degree or something, but they're like they're some of the smartest people you talk to them, they're funny. But in the last 8 years they've become kind of insufferable with the Trump shit. So this is the Miami new guy, and we find this voter profile to be specifically unique. Tomas has been talking about him for a while now, and he can't get it, and like people can't get enough of it.
I went to school with
so many.
That's that guy.
Yeah, I can't stop talking to Democrats enough about this voter profile. I'm like, you want to win this county? You gotta figure out how to talk to the Miami new guy.
Yeah, and he'll bring up that he voted for Obama in 2016 as proof that he's not 2016,
2012 or 2008.
As proof that he's not racist.
My 2008 like lib media guy election night party that my wife, but then girlfriend, and I had in our little Coral Gables apartment when Obama won, and we were all like, "Yeah, we're doing it, everyone!" And there was like everything was everybody's emotions were riding high, and it felt great. Featured no less than 8 Miami new guys in waiting, like guys who would go on to become Miami new guys, who were right there along with us, like, "Fuck yeah, bro, you fucking won, bro!" And it was like, and Tomas brought up the way that he explains this to his Democrat friends, and I think it's very important to mention that there is no piece of the Democrat project that is appealing to these people. That they find nothing appealing about anything that Democrats have been talking about in the last 6 years or so. Like Gerald, you've talked about this guy before too. You're kind of on video, so I don't want to like freeze you out or anything.
No, you're fine. This I know the type of person you're talking about. I left Florida by the time really was. I feel COVID was like a big shove for a lot of people to become like explicitly political. Probably, you saw like bits and pieces and signs of it in maybe not Miami specifically. But I'd say COVID definitely was the catalyst for these people becoming like politics as their identity, like out in front.
Right. No, the way that I have interacted with this person is like they bring up Trump the way that they would bring up the Heat. Like they're like, yeah, fucking Trump, yeah.
You
like,
get it.
The same, their Heat Nation, their Heat culture, but like it just translates from one to the other.
Yeah, like I feel like maybe we didn't realize what we had when culture was revolving around sports, and we would criticize it and be like, God, our country's so stupid. All we care about is sports and our sports teams and bread and circuses and shit. And it's like, okay, well, how about this? Like, it's like the monkey's paw thing. It's like, oh, I wish people were more politically engaged. It's like, how do you feel about that now?
Careful what you wish for. Yeah, man, for real.
Yeah, no, I like the Miami new guy. I mean,
we like the Miami new guy.
It's hard to not like him because he's always there for you.
He's a funny guy.
And he's a funny guy.
I mean, yeah, and like I am like actively wondering if I should invite him to my birthday party or not, because they're gonna he might walk in with a MAGA or a Trump hat, and things might go south. But like, yeah, he's kind of a dick, and he still makes me laugh.
Yeah. And they're on a spectrum. I don't mean to like paint them all with a broad brush, and this is part of like a bigger thing.
Oh, they're on a spectrum, all right.
What a layup!
As I proceed to do exactly that, but it's funny. It's a problem that I think it's a problem that I think needs to be solved. If you are somebody liberal, or if you're on the left, and if what we talk about a lot on the show is politics and the incompatibility with current leftist or liberal just representation of what we believe in or whatever, like how it's not compatible with so many different people around the country. Right. And we're a Miami podcast, so like these are the guys that we're talking about. I don't know, T, have you seen anything since the last time we talked about Miami new guy that would lead you to believe that like maybe he might feel some recalcitrance or reproach over Trump and maybe I shouldn't have done that vote?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Maybe the fact that consumer prices are in fact going up, but probably not.
No, but suddenly they become an expert in bird flu and market fluctuations.
Yes.
So like,
they have very nuanced takes on tariffs and shit. Yeah.
Andrew, you've written a bunch of, because you're a satirist and you write a lot, but sometimes you write serious pieces, and you've written about how Miami-Dade has flipped from liberal to some degree to conservative, to a big degree. How do you think we can win Miami new guy, or Democrats can win Miami new guy back?
Yeah, what's this we should?
Yeah,
is there a French frog in your pocket?
Mental reflex. Sorry.
How do you win the Miami new guy back? You stop lecturing. One. Yeah. You doesn't matter if somebody agrees with 85% of the things that you say. If you are a dick to that person, like, they're just going to tell you to go fuck off.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the Democratic Party has done in South Florida. Also, we have, again, since this is the Miami new guy and not the Florida new guy or the United States new guy, like, to be perfectly honest, the Democrats, when it comes to messaging in South Florida, have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what the daily problems or concerns of the people here are. And like, if we're focused on if we're focused on Reddit culture and like seeing who can get one up on the next person and who can call out whomever and who owns the libs or who owns the conservatives, we've lost. Cause like that's the morass you never get out of. What you want to talk to people about is how do you make their lives better? And so Trump comes in, and his surrogates, who are Miami natives and know how to literally speak the language here.
And well-heeled here.
Right.
Yeah.
They come in and they say, all right, well, even if it's complete bullshit, they're at the very least addressing this guy's concerns, which is things are expensive. I can't, it's hard to, get a mortgage, or it's hard to find an apartment, or it's, everything is out of control in terms of like economics. Like, Trump will come in and say, okay, we're going to kick out the undocumented immigrants and we're going to put tariffs, and that's going to make everything great for you. These concerns that you have. Again, this guy probably doesn't have a great grounding on, WTO internal politics or, what a tariff actually is. But he, at the very least, says, okay, this guy is speaking to my concerns. Also, he's funny, and the Democrats are not.
That's a big part of it. That's a huge part of it. Well, actually, I want to, because you've talked about this. I want to explore that a little more.
Chuck Schumer's pretty funny when he barbecues. I like that.
Yeah, but it's not. We're not laughing with him. We're laughing at him.
Right. But he's an object of humor.
I want to explore the psychology of the new guy a little more, because, and you're a Cuban American, so I want to get at this analysis by you. But I think the economic anxiety piece, which so many liberals hate, right? Because they see it as an excuse or whatever. But no, it's just the truth, right? It doesn't have to be an excuse. It can be an excuse, however you want to interpret it. But people are feeling economically anxious. And I feel like, for a lot of, especially the Cuban American guys, right? And a lot of Latin American guys, like, they have a certain mythos. You've talked about this mythos about their like families, right? They came here often, like my grandfather came here with like nothing in their pocket, $100 in their pocket, and they started a business, and it thrived, and they bought their first home, and we've had that home for decades, and they really built their lives, their family nucleus, their business, their homes, everything here, right? And now it's harder for them to do what their grandparents or their parents did, right? It's so much harder to start a business that's successful. It's so much harder to buy a home and keep that home. It's so much harder to gain a job, right? That's economically secure. It's just hard to have a good quality of life and be economically secure. So to your point, there is a guy, Trump, who's a demagogue, that's talking to that scarcity mindset and that economic anxiety And on the other side, you have the Democrats who are just all over the place with their messaging, not talking about that, most of the time, and are just really unfunny. You know what I mean? And yeah, I just want to agree. I mean, I think it's just a recipe for disaster,
I think you touched on something important here. And I've seen this more and more over the last several years, which is the guys are not okay. Yeah. The men are not okay.
That's another piece. I think I know where you're going, but this is something that we actually haven't talked about vis-a-vis the Miami new guy. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, this guy grew up seeing his grandfather and his father being able to provide for his family, and suddenly he's having a really hard time doing it. That sense of masculinity that he grew up is, no longer has cultural purchase, whatever. And
it's not rewarded the way that it was.
The beard compensates.
Sure, the beard and the F-150 compensate. But the Democrats have to be able to say, we are for helping men and at the same time helping women and other people and, non-binary or queer people, whomever. But we don't want to punish men. Right. We want to help you as well. And as long as that new Miami guy or Miami new guy doesn't hear, he's hearing from the Republicans, you're awesome. Let's bring, let's turn it to 11 on the patriarchy and put you on top of the socioeconomic.
They don't want you to be a great man. Exactly. They want you to be trans or something.
Yeah.
They want you to be cooked and beta and soy.
So there isn't good messaging around men, and we're getting past just the Miami guy, but generally into masculinity. There isn't good, hey, we want to make your life better. What the Miami new guy here is, we want to help all these other people, and you go fuck yourself.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a broader story than just the Miami guy. You're right. It's whatever demographers and anthropologists and sociologists have been talking about this for a while. But I always think of coolant in a car when you leave it and it doesn't circulate through the radiator system and it just settles there and it doesn't have anywhere to go. It becomes hate to use the word, it becomes toxic and it can eat through the interior of your radiator. It can fuck up your car, right? And that feels a lot like there's no place for these guys to go and to be. And I'm not saying that we have to indulge the patriarchy or some shit like that.
No.
But they're human beings that exist in our society, and they need to.
Human beings and their voters.
And they're voters. Yeah, exactly. So that's my cholesterol medication
this is the
reminder.
Second time.
I want to apologize for taking care of myself. You know what? I want to live. All right.
That's good. Men should take care of themselves. We're living it.
Damn it.
So final. Okay, this is our last time we're going to talk about Miami new guy for a little while because there's no elections anytime soon.
It's not the last time we're going to talk about Miami.
No.
Honestly, I feel
Tomas wants to turn Miami new guy into a cottage industry thing for us. He wants to make it a content vertical. Sell the t-shirts. Yeah. I designed the t-shirt. Remember? I got a picture of I did a cutout picture of Oscar Isaac.
Oh yeah,
I worked,
and I put a MAGA hat on it, and I was like, "This is the Miami."
I worked in polling, so you guys know polling and focus group testing. A lot of money in that.
Yeah,
we should be getting paid honestly $30,000 to do a focus group test on Miami new guy.
Yes, yeah. I can fill that room with Miami new guys.
We should be getting fucking paid to focus group these guys by the Democrats, but they won't.
Showing them different logos or different slogans like AOC's policy platform, and just being that's gay, bro. That shit's not gonna lie, bro. That shit's kind of lame.
Interesting.
Okay. All right.
Oh, that's something. That's unexpected.
Hit me up in 2 years. Hit me up before 18 months.
Yeah. So moving on from Miami new guy, we'll talk about him again.
We'll come back. We'll come
back to him. Or he'll come back to us.
Welcome to the Miami new guy podcast.
Yeah, exactly. As we deftly rebrand ourselves.
It's a good name, honestly.
We talked about a lot of things on our last episode. The last two episodes, we touched on a whole bunch of different topics, but it was really a real potpourri. But I wanted to drill down a little potpourri. Yeah, ever heard of that? Yeah, it's a potpourri, baby.
Fragrant.
It was fragrant. It was definitely fragrant. We want to drill down on the topic of immigration, one that we have talked about quite a bit in this show, but not in the current state that we're in. Obviously, our governor and our president are in a race to see who can be more draconian and evil towards people who are some of the most defenseless people in our country. And Tomas, you went up to Tallahassee. I was thinking maybe you could lead us in with like just setting up where this stands right now. Like, this has also turned into a weird pissing match with DeSantis and a bunch of conservative or a bunch of Republicans in Tallahassee who are kind of sick of having to deal with him and kowtow to him. And it seems like there's other shit going on with that has nothing to do with the issue. But of course, as usual, the undocumented people of Florida are going to be the ones that bear the brunt of it. So what were you doing in Tallahassee?
I'll just set the stage. I was there working, but I'll set the stage of what's happening. So bear with me. It's a lot. Basically, DeSantis dropped this, really big bill. That was the main thrust of it was that it would create a state immigration agency headed by what's called a chief immigration officer that he would appoint, right? And it was supposed to be, I think, $500 million agency, right? Our taxpayer dollars. The legislature, and he called a special session via proclamation to legislate this, to enact it. The legislature under the current leadership, Danny Perez and Alberton in the Senate,
majority conservative,
they've been sick of him, flexing on them, and it's not an ideological dispute. It's more of just a power dispute, right? So they basically they legally they have to convene for the special session, but they don't have to take the whatever the governor is calling on them to take up.
His proposals,
they basically gather for the special session, and this is procedural. They ended the special session that the governor called immediately once they gathered, and they immediately called their own special session within their own proclamation that encompassed their priorities. And what their priorities were is pretty much the exact same bill that the governor was going to have, but instead of having it be under the chief immigration officer that DeSantis appointed, it was supposed to be under the agriculture commissioner, who's Wilton Simpson, who's a sort of like a more moderate, quote unquote, moderate Republican that is, pro agriculture, obviously pro big business, more of like a Bushite.
Man, if only we still had a Democrat agriculture commissioner who loves to say the F word.
Where's she now? I don't know.
Whatever happened to her?
Anyways, so the legislature wanted to basically enact the same statewide office, but under the agriculture commissioner. Obviously, DeSantis flipped out because it was stripping this $500 million potential agency from him and a bunch of immigration powers, right, from the governor that he currently has. So he would actually emerge from this weekend.
Right.
They passed this bill, the legislature, enacting this specific proposal. They called it the Trump Act, which is so sycophantic and pathetic. And the governor was like, I'm going to veto this. So there was a bit of a standoff, right, between the legislature and the governor until they basically negotiated a compromise, and they called another special session. And the compromise is this statewide immigration agency will be controlled by basically the Florida cabinet. So the CFO, the chief financial officer, the agriculture commissioner, the attorney general, and the governor, right? So they all have veto power and basically a 25% decision-making, ability within this body. Another thing that this bill does is it does enact a bunch of anti-immigrant policies in the state, right? It mandates death penalties for undocumented immigrants that commit capital offenses, which, however you feel about the death penalty, and I'm certainly against it, is unconstitutional because we have an equal protection clause under the 14th Amendment, right? Which says you can't mandate a penalty on a specific person based on their identity or country of origin, immigration status, etc.
We can't be like, we kill these people.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's also cruel under the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, we all know if let's say someone who commits a crime, however heinous, if they have some sort of mental disability, right? Yeah. The sentencing usually takes that into consideration. So, having a mandatory death sentence would very likely be interpreted as a violation of the Constitution under the 8th Amendment as well. But it also ended in-state tuition for undocumented students, which was
mean, just a mean asshole thing.
It's a law that was passed 2014 sponsored by the lieutenant governor under Ron DeSantis, that just was selected to be the president of FIU, Janet Nunez, signed into law by Rick Scott. It allows undocumented students that have completed 3 years of high school education in the state to basically pay the same as any U.S. citizen for an undergraduate degree, no public benefit included. They ended that, and they actually ended it for current students. So if you're in your first, second, third year of your university degree, fuck you. You have to pay as a foreign student, quadruple the price. Very mean, very mean. And there were just, enhanced penalties for misdemeanors, for example, if you're an undocumented person. So, there's no driver's licenses for undocumented people in like 18 other states. So if you're driving without a license just to get to work, that's bumped up to a felony now on the second offense. And there's also, DeSantis is basically mandating, and this is very wonky, but he's mandating that the Florida Highway Patrol and municipalities and other police departments sign something called 287G agreements, which is a section of the INA, which is the Immigration Nationality Act, that basically deputizes. It's been used in the last few years to deputize police officers within county jails to basically detain people for ICE, to hold them for ICE to pick them up through what's called a detainer request. But they're using this model that hasn't been used since 2011 called Task Force, 287G Task Force, to basically deputize police officers outside of the jail setting. So what does that mean? They can ask people for immigration.
They can act as de facto enforcement.
They can ask people for immigration papers on the street. They can detain them, on their ICE powers, indefinitely. They can do the paperwork for ICE to speed up a detention and a transfer to a detention center. So basically, it's turning the whole state into a persecutory, the whole police force in the state into a persecutory de facto immigration enforcement agency.
Yeah. And already ICE was one of if you just think of all of the 3-letter law enforcement or intelligence agencies, they were already one of the shittiest when it comes to observing constitutional law and just relying on this broad interpretation of the remember the 100-mile barrier between
I was about to say that. So,
which encompasses all of Florida.
ICE and CBPs has extrajudicial ability to enforce immigration law or enforcement, to be redundant, within 100 miles of a U.S. land or maritime border. And because Florida is a peninsula, that 100-mile jurisdiction encompasses the whole state. So they have a lot of leeway here to do immigration enforcement.
Yeah. I'd like to hear whether or not you think all of this will survive legal review and challenges and things like that. But
the death penalty provision, I think, will be struck down, and a lot of Republicans acknowledged it. So, I think some portions of what was passed is vulnerable to legal challenges because, the Supremacy Clause mandates that immigration enforcement and immigration policy, really, immigration infrastructure, processes are the purview of the federal government, so they are trying to set up sort of like a redundant statewide mirror immigration enforcement and processing framework that is, I think there are, vulnerabilities in litigation to it, but, that will have to be decided in court. But I think the death penalty provision that I described earlier is a pretty slam dunk unconstitutional.
So and I'm really glad that we have Andrew here because there are two, as all of this ramped up rhetoric and even more draconian legislation is being considered and passed across the country, but specifically here in Florida. There are two distinct phenomena that I've observed, and you're the perfect person to weigh in and talk about this. And I know you talk about it on social media at Andrew Otazo if you guys want to follow him. It's the first one is the sort of predictable backlash of we saw this in Doral recently, where it's like a Latinas for Trump type of person, somebody who's politically adjacent, maybe like
Miami New Girl,
Miami New Girl. Zoe de Chanel. No, but we'll see them. We'll see them, lamenting the passing of these laws and the fact that maybe somebody close to them or somebody that they might, or somebody in their constituency, people in their constituency are going to be affected by them in one way or another. And the second phenomena is a carry-on of that, or just like a sort of follows that. And that is the liberal rejoicing in misery, which is really turning me off and making it really hard for a dyed-in-the-wool leftist like me, but that word doesn't even mean anything. A dyed-in-the-wool Marxist like me. Yeah, fuck it.
That escalated.
Yeah. I know. You just say those things anymore. I don't know, but whatever. If it's that much that it's like between whatever, man, you can go down the road of a million different criticisms that people like us have had of the Democratic Party policy over the last however many years, but like. That's just like an extra one to see people on social media be like doing the sipping the tea thing while they're like stitching somebody, like having handcuffs put on them and taken away from their family, who probably didn't fucking have anything to do with Donald Trump getting elected because they're an immigrant, dumbass. They didn't fucking vote for him, assuming that they didn't vote at all.
And if they did,
and even if they did,
they deserved suffering.
It's or the brother or the mom or whomever of somebody who might have voted for Trump.
Yeah. So I mean, have you?
Also, people make mistakes. I mean, I don't know. If just because you voted for him, you should get deported. I don't know. I don't think so.
That's all those Pat Buchanan voters from 2000. I'll tell you that. Shit, I thought it was
deep cut H.
But I don't know. Have you observed this too? And seen this?
And it's people who don't. It's people who don't know anyone in these communities. And crazy revelation here for the Democrats that laughing or enjoying somebody else's misery is bad politics.
Terrible.
Because even if Trump's ICE deported your uncle, you're still going to remember the freaking Democrats, like, whatever, sipping their tea and enjoying their time and laughing at you and telling you it's all your fault. Like, that's not a good way to earn them back. Also, like, it's just inhumane.
Yeah.
Like, what do you? Who are you hurting in this situation? Are you hurting Trump? Are you hurting ICE agents? Are you hurting the Proud Boys? No, some poor person is getting deported. Their entire lives are crumbling. Their families' lives are crumbling. Their entire community is going to be affected by this, and you are loving it.
Yeah.
You are
relishing
a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean. I agree with the substance of what you said, but I will say I will disagree on the first thing you said, which is just people that don't know these communities that are doing this. Because I mean, I've seen a lot of people on Instagram recently, for example, dunking on the Venezuelans that lost their TPS status, right?
Yeah, that was a specific hook that I had for this conversation.
You're right.
And some background, the temporary protected status, which is a status that is given to certain nationalities that have had political upheaval or natural disasters, etc.
Extenuating circumstances.
And it's done through executive action. The president basically does it through DHS. And anyways, Trump just rescinded it for about 250,000 Venezuelans that from one day to the other are like, you don't have status, your work permit's gone, you can be deported now. I see a lot of people on Instagram, man, on social media, like that live in this community being like, well, fuck them. You know what I mean? They voted for Trump. I'm like, a lot of them didn't, and even the ones that did, I don't know. I don't take glee on it, because again, their lives are going to be ruined, their loved ones. And beyond that, you're right. It's just bad politics. Yeah. Like you're supposed, they're voters. Like these people have, not those specific people, but they have friends, they have boyfriend, girlfriend, they have people spouses,
who their absence is going
children,
to
grandparents,
right?
friends.
It's going to result in such.
Yeah, you want to bring those people into your tent, and you kick them when they're down.
You need them in your tent, or you're never going to get reelected.
Gerald, this reminds me of something that you've said before about how, like, Democrats kind of will try to be like Republican light, and it's like, well, we'll be the party of assholes who do terrible, who say awful shit, and it's like, well, if I'm going to do that, right, I'll just go to the Republicans because they're better at it.
You don't want the light version.
I do think this is downstream of the Democrats not having an opposition strategy for Trump, that they're just instead going after people who voted for him instead. Like, I do think that they are out of gas, and it's easier to pick on ordinary everyday people, especially if they're vulnerable, than try to figure out what you're going to do as an opposition party to prevent a lot of. I mean, and it's not like there's any absence of material. Like, you could be raising a lot of noise, and some people are, about especially like what Elon Musk is doing, and that's a conversation for another day. It's not like there's an absence of material for stuff you could be not just righteously outraged by, but something that would be coalition building in expressing outrage about. But I think that they've given up. I think they have given up trying to be a party of opposition to Donald Trump, because they've done it since 2015, and they're going to do it basically until 2020. That's a decade and a half of their time on one person. I think they're just worn out by it, and it's easier to pick on people who are not the president of the United States.
Yeah. I do want to clarify something, just to be fair and objective. What we're talking about, it's not like the Democratic Party, like infrastructure in and of itself, right? No. Like elected officials or party leaders.
These are Olivia Juliana type people. Yeah,
these
social
are like
media, Democrat influencers,
operatives, the activists, party class that is engaging in this. I don't want to like make it seem like it's the electeds doing this, because it would be unfair to sort of give away that perception.
Right, it's not like Annette Taddeo is out there being like,
correct,
or
right.
Being like,
but again,
that's what you get. Go tell it to Maduro, bitch. Or it's not.
But again, one of the big criticisms of this election is that the Democrats don't have a good ground game on the internet, right? They don't have a good social media infrastructure. So when you have your influencers and your like online keyboard warriors telling a bunch of Venezuelans go fuck yourselves and TPS gets rescinded, that does resonate, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say is you brought up like, oh, well, they're being sort of like the Republicans. I listened to an unhealthy amount of conservative AM radio during the Obama years when Obama was president. I can't think of a single time when conservatives responded to an electoral defeat or legislative policies that they hated by lashing out at the voters. They would always keep the focus on Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck, Harry Reid. Sorry, at the time, I can't think of a single time where they were just like, "This just shows how trash the American people are."
They're scared of their voters.
So this is Gerald. Thank you. This is something that I'm always reminded of, and for some reason I never think to mention. But it is so crazy to me the amount of times that, as somebody who was, to the left of the Democratic Party and like supported Bernie and tried to like get him elected or whatever, that I was told failed horribly, and I've been told
I worked for the guy,
and I've been told like, yeah, well, that's what you get voting for Jill Stein. First of all, I never voted for Jill Stein, and most of the people that they complain about voting for Jill Stein didn't vote for Jill Stein. Third of all, if you add up all of Jill Stein's votes, they don't equal and you assume that every Jill Stein voter would have been a Hillary or a Kamala voter. Still doesn't. But like the fact that Republicans very frequently lose elections where the difference is like a 4.1% libertarian vote, and they never complain about the libertarian. I've never heard like fucking Mitch McConnell complain
Mitt Romney.
Or George Will complain about libertarians. No.
In fact, this past cycle, Trump went to their convention to ask for their vote, saying how great he would be on Bitcoin. I mean, it was goofy, but at least that's a proactive coalition building maneuver.
He won the fucking election.
He
won. It's in my mind, like the Democrats are like this circular firing squad, right? So like they lose and they shoot each other. They win, they shoot each other anyway. The Republicans are like, all right, we lost, and they'll do a 180 and fire outward.
Yeah,
I feel like
I've never heard of a Republican postmortem after an election that
I
lost.
do. No, I remember in 2012 they had the big postmortem, and they were like, we need to get friendlier on immigration.
You know what? Let's just be more racist.
It was like Tim Miller and Elise Stefanik and all this.
Maybe we should become a little bit more nice and liberal. Hey, look, what's that guy coming down that golden staircase? Maybe he's got something to say. Yeah. Let's see what he has to say.
Yep. Nope.
Yeah, future of the party, Jeb Bush. Right?
The other piece of that, I think, that we had talked about a little bit before the show began was the idea, and you alluded to it a moment ago, the idea that a lot of the commentary, a lot of this very sort of like sour grapes commentary is coming from people that don't know the community very well. And I wanted to unpack that piece a little bit because specifically, I think that if you're outside of Miami or if you're outside of South Florida, you think that Miami is just filled with millionaire Cubans and that are basically white guys and white people. And that's not the, and you're like, and you think that somehow they're going to go that Donald Trump is going to kick down the rich Cuban guy's door who's been here since the revolution and has run 4 generations of successful businesses, and he's going to grab him or his wife or their family. And I don't know how to explain the striations of like class here in Miami, but like those people that the angry, salty liberal are so eager to see get their comeuppance. They're not going to get the comeuppance. Right. These are the people that are going to pay the penalty are the same people that always pay the penalty. The people on the bottom of the ladder, the people who have most recently come in.
I need to tell you a story about this guy, this particular liberal. Specifically, this actually happened. I was in a dinner in DC. I was at the time the executive director of the Cuba Study Group. So I was literally a professional Cuban.
Now shutting down because of no USAID money.
Well, we won't get into that. But so I was literally the only Cuban American in a room full of white people, and it was like 25 people. And the guy who had organized this dinner was sitting to my right. He actually asked me to be there, so I went. And sitting across from him was a guy from South Africa. And he turns to the guy from South Africa and says, "What do you think the Cuban American community feels about X, Y, and Z?" And I just about flipped the fucking table because I am literally the only Cuban in the room.
I'm right here.
Yes, I'm professionally a Cuban. I'm supposed to know what's going on in Cuba and in Miami and in other Cuban communities.
You are the executive director of the Cuba Study Group.
Yes, yeah. And he turns to the guy from the other continent to ask him about the Cuban American community. So that's the guy. That's the guy you're talking about. But
now I'm just thinking about like you as like Patrick Bateman with a business card that's like professional cute Andrew.
It even has a watermark.
Professional Cuban.
I think that's still on my Instagram. I think professional Cuban might still be there in my description. But yes, so like the average Cuban American I believe makes between $37,000 and $38,000 a year. And he's not like, whatever, the Mas family or whatever.
Yeah.
They're the average Cuban is Cuban American is struggling economically. Well, always has been.
And to circle back to the beginning of the episode, you don't want those people to get their comeuppance. You want to get the Miami new guy back on your side.
Yeah. Correct.
You want to get those people back.
Don't tear down, Bill.
Yeah. You want a policy of abundance, not a policy of exclusion or a policy of doctrinaireship. You have to, if you don't take every single box here, then fuck you. Like you're not you're not sufficiently pure to join our party. You want to bring that person in, but more so, Gerald was mentioning this, that beyond just being in opposition to Trump, what are you for?
Yeah.
What is the vision you are providing people that will make them want to vote for you? And right now, the Democrats do not have that, to the point where Kamala Harris is like, yeah, I'd basically do everything Biden did, and I'd keep everything exactly as they were. And people here said, no, we don't want that. And they didn't vote for her.
That was a bad answer. That was a terrible answer.
Biden famously if there's anything that stuck out to me in his campaign was his initial campaign in 2020 was Gerald, keep me honest here. What was it? It was fundamentally nothing will change or whatever.
Nothing
right?
will fundamentally change, basically. Yeah.
Oh God.
I remember having fun with that in Photoshop and just making that into using Biden fonts and making it
fundamentally put it through an Obama filter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fundamentally, nothing will change. Yeah, so that stuff's infuriating, man. To me, I just feel like Miami has become ground zero for it's Florida too, for a criticism that is like so off base that it's actually dangerous. Where it's like, oh yeah, well, what we need to do is cut out these toxic male Latinos because they're a fucking problem. People in the black community are dealing with this too because black men voted overwhelmingly. Actually, they should be far more exonerated than Hispanic men. Black men again voted overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party, and if you listen to any of the sort of ad hoc criticism or whatever, like post game Monday morning quarterbacking, it's like, oh, black men failed us. They didn't show up.
You bring up another good point, which is people, Democrats, liberals, whatever, have been shitting on the Cuban American community forever. Couple things. The Cuban American vote in this country split 50-50 in 2016. Hillary, Trump. Another thing, it's not just the Cubans. It's the Venezuelans. It's the Nicaraguenses. It's the South Texas Mexicans. Yep. It's the people in Orange County. It's in New York. It's Puerto Ricans, in the I-4 corridor. Yep. It's not just a Cuban problem. This is a party-wide problem that they have with an entire ethnicity.
Yeah, I mean, to Gerald's point, like the Republicans don't blame their voters. You know what I mean? Like when they lose elections, they're not
like, fuck the white men.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's go for all the
white men didn't show up. No, what did they do? They created an entire plank of their platform around white people having more babies. So, they're like, that's what we'll do. We'll make more of ourselves.
So to circle back, because we are coming up on an hour. Yeah. Democrats, pay us. We will focus group. We'll get you. We will focus.
We'll go to every barber shop in the van.
Just pay us. We'll do the focus groups. You'll get a cut because you're bringing the Miami new guys. A bunch. We'll write you some memo.
The only difference between a podcast and a think tank is microphones and actually making money.
Yeah. You guys need to figure out the Miami new guy and bring him back into the tent, because if not, I'm scared. It's over.
All right, so I want to thank our guest Andrew Otazo. Andrew, where else can people other than at Andrew Otazo, where else can people find more about you?
I guess on Instagram, Miami Creation Myth, Twitter at Andrew Otazo. If you happen to be trekking through the mangroves and you see a guy carrying 40 pounds of trash on his back, that's probably me.
Help him out. For God's sake.
Give me a hand.
Jump in there.
I got some back pain.
It's all of our mangroves.
It's all about the mangroves.
All right, cool. Let me hit stop.